Networking can be, you have the small talk and things like that, but I always compare it to when I was starting school, when I was starting Oxford. It's great. I can imagine my parents were thinking, yes, we want Chi Chi to have a very great experience, social, go to parties, meet people, but trust and believe. By the end of the day, we have to make sure she's taking the right classes, that she has all of her requirements, and that she graduates on time. So it's kind of like that when it comes to networking. You can definitely, use it as a form of leisure, but then also there has to be an end goal. There has to be an end result of some sort.
This is the Brandon Smith Show, and I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of this show is one singular thing, and that's to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. So we're going to talk about a topic that we've touched on before on this show, but it's one that we always need to be reminded of, and that is the importance of networking. Folks, if you are not being intentional about networking right now, in your week, month, you need to be. I mean, all the folks that I'm talk to right now that I'm hearing about getting new jobs, it's all from people that they knew and that they know. So it's so important. So to help us on this journey, I have a wonderful guest, Chi Chi Okezie. Mm-hmm. And Chi Chi, not only have we been connected on social media and I get to follow you and see all the great work you're up to, but this is right in one of your areas of sweet spot. Mm-hmm. So to make sure that I've got your title right, you are the owner and producer. I told you I love the idea of being a producer. Owner, producer of Simple Networking. Mm-hmm. And so that's a consulting firm kind of based here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am so thrilled to have you on because we've been chatting with each other on social media and commenting, and the opportunity now to have you on and share some of your gifts with my listeners is a really good one.
Absolutely.
So maybe before we jump into our topic of networking, because I know that's one of your areas of expertise, let's do a little bit of story time. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us what you do today, and then what was kind of your journey to get there?
Oh my gosh. So I started this business 13 years ago. So this is lucky year 13.
Congratulations. That's a big deal.
It is. And I'm excited. It's a lot of twists and turns, of course, being an entrepreneur. I actually started out doing freelance translating. So when I was at Emory in Oxford, I majored in French cultural studies, which my parents still don't think that's a major. But it's okay. It's all right. We're going into year 20. It's okay. And I still keep in touch with my French family. I did study abroad in Paris. Absolutely loved it. And when I got back to the United States, I started interning at the French American Chamber. So that's really where I learned how to network and then also how to start a business. Even though they are nonprofit, they have a very strong economic end. And they have relationships with, of course, the consulate, French consulate, as well as other French or French-speaking different organizations, such as the Quebec Trade Office, other binational chambers of commerce. So I really learned a lot about networking in English and in French from there. And then it just kind of got to a point where, you get to this crossroad where even though translating is great, it's a little bit technical and you have to translate what they give you. So you can't be creative. So you can't put in little things here and make suggestions, especially in the sense of translating certain documents such as birth certificates, death certificates. I didn't even know there were death certificates. Makes sense. Sense. And different types of documents. So it has to be perfect, pretty much, because if there's a discrepancy, then the person on the other end can either have their request delayed or denied. And so I decided to get into networking because I did see a gap. I saw, going to these what we call cocktail du commerce, which is a fancy term for after-hour business meetings.
Can you say it again?
Cocktail de commerce.
I wish everyone would just call it that. That's so much cooler.
It is fancy.
One more time. Just one more time.
Of course. Cocktail de commerce.
Yes. That's it, folks. From now on, invite your coworkers to that. I can't pronounce it. I'll do a horrible job. That's what you invite them to. And no one's going to turn you down. They're like,
No,
oh,
not
really?
at all. Not at all.
Am I dressed okay for that? That'll be the first thing they ask. Am I appropriately dressed? Beautiful.
Oh my gosh. So I would go to these cocktails de commerce and just see a bit of a disconnect with meeting people, talking, following up, building relationships, and then eventually doing business. So I decided to start Simple Networking, and that was January. It was January of like 2007. And so I've just been going since then and haven't looked back.
Okay, I want to honor something. You started that in January '07.
Yes.
So then we have this fun little recession thing that happened.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
I bet you did. So how did it go with your business during that time?
It was really challenging because even networking now, especially online, doesn't look like how it looks now, back then. So LinkedIn and, Twitter, even Instagram wasn't up to par. So it was a lot of just hitting the groundwork, going out, meeting people face to face, and even with companies, and I know we'll talk about this later, that had internal resource groups. Those weren't really as developed. You may have had one or two Fortune 500 companies here in Atlanta that had a structure, but it still wasn't robust. So to get these HR managers or these directors to really buy into your employees need to network. They need to learn how to develop their skills, how to build relationships and things like that, cross-department and even not affiliations, like even cross-companies was a challenge. But you just have to get on a budget and just stay focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you started this in January 2007.
Yes, yeah.
And then you've been doing that ever since. So now catch us up to today. What are the kinds of things that you provide, either individuals or companies? What does networking as a business look like?
So what I provide are training sessions, seminars and workshops, and even events on how to network. And I know it sounds like, it's just how to network. You just show up, right? Not really. It's a little bit more detailed. So I like to think of it, I compare it to breathing. So when we're born, we just automatically start breathing if we don't have respiratory problems, right? But we don't call ourselves natural breathers because you're living. That's what you're supposed to do. So I kind of see that as networking. When people say they're natural networkers, we operate in networks. That's kind of what you're supposed to be doing. So, but breathing, there are certain aspects of breathing where you have to be more technical. You have to be more focused because you're trying to reach a goal, whether it's to reduce anxiety, stress, whether it's breathing after exercising to calm down, or just different types of breathing for relaxation. Same thing with networking. We network all the time, but then there's certain times where you have to be strategic. You have to be more focused because you're reaching a particular goal.
Oh, I love that analogy.
So, yeah.
And even makes me think about people who train their breathing if they're going to do underwater diving, or they're going to be marathon runners or something like that. So it can be even strenuous or the relaxation part.
Exactly.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, super cool. All right, so here we are. We sit here today, and we've got listeners right now.
Okay.
And I can guarantee you that, yes, you who I'm talking to, the listener, is not networking as much as she or he should be. So what are some good initial steps? What are some things that you would advise that they either start to think about to prepare or actually do to make them better networkers?
Okay, so I'll give 3 tips, right?
Okay, nice.
The first thing is I like to say make networking a lifestyle. Incorporate it into your lifestyle. People always think it's separate. It's something else separate that I'll do from work or from my family, from this or from that. So really incorporate it into your lifestyle, whether it's networking at the job. As I mentioned before, if you're in a bigger company, there are resource groups or employee resource groups that you can join that are affinity related, such as African American, male, female, well, maybe not male, but female groups, women's groups, generational by age, and even veterans and things of that nature. Then there's the other piece of getting connected with your alumni association, right? So especially if you're here in Atlanta, or if there is a chapter, getting involved there and and even if there's not a chapter, you can always piggyback, right? So before Emory came out with their women's alumni group, I was going to my sister's alumni group at Georgia Tech till they kicked me out, but but it was good while it lasted. And then after that, a few months later, Emory kind of piloted theirs, so it worked out. So you definitely want to make networking a lifestyle. Just incorporate it to what you're already doing, so it doesn't seem like it's an extra step. The other thing is that you have to be networking minded in the type sense that when you're out about meeting people, you're finding ways of adding value. You're finding ways of expressing who you are, what you do, and even your goals, instead of, and networking can be, you have the small talk and things like that. But I always compare it to, when I was starting school, when I was starting Oxford, it's great. I can imagine my parents were thinking, yes, we want Chi Chi to have a very great experience, social, go to parties, meet people, but trust and believe. By the end of the day, we have to make sure she's taking the right classes, that she has all of her requirements, and that she graduates on time. So it's kind of like that when it comes to networking. You can definitely, use it as a form of leisure, but then also there has to be an end goal. There has to be an end result of some sort, whether it is personal or professional. And then the other piece is for networking, it has to be continuous. I can see people that will, if they're going through a job transition, then they're hardcore networking. They're joining groups, they're following up, they're meeting people, they're, updating their resume. And as soon as they get that job, everything just flatlines, drops. The plug is pulled, lights out. And that can be very problematic, not in the type sense that they could lose their job in a couple of months or something, or have to transition or get laid off, but they're not keeping that momentum. And I feel like when you keep that momentum, then your networking becomes stronger.
Yeah, and I would also add a couple things in this. I had two quick mini stories. One was, I had an executive search friend of mine say some of the most difficult kinds of clients for them to place are going to be those executive types that didn't network at all. So they come to them for the first time with no LinkedIn profile, no network, and then they have to kind of help them build that. So they don't have that network that they're able to leverage. And then to your point, then let's say you build it and you work on it, you get a new job and you stop. I've had people come up to me before and say, that person was super social with me and connected when they needed a job, and then just disappeared. It didn't feel genuine. It didn't feel sincere. It felt like they were just trying to use me to get a job. So it can come across as you're using people if you're not really make it part of the natural habit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's so very true. So we've got a little bit of time before break, and I'm noticing it because I actually have a question I really want to ask you.
Okay, sure.
I'm not a good networker. I know she looked shocked. I don't know if that shock was like because you were upset with me and disappointed, or you don't believe it.
I don't believe it.
No, you need to believe it. I don't like networking, and here's my problem. I don't like talking about myself.
Okay.
I don't know how to do that very well. So maybe that is something we can kind of start to move into as we get closer to the other side of the break, because I bet I'm not the only one.
Okay.
That comes to you and says, Chi Chi, I get to the event. Now what do I do? Right. And I'm not even sure how to talk about myself and elevator pitch and that kind of thing, because I don't want to come across as making it all about me or being pushy. I don't want that to be part of who I am. But I think I default to not talking about me at all, which is not effective as a networker. So I want you to think about that, because when we come back from break, I really need your help.
Okay. You got it.
So this is going to be a therapy show for Brandon today, folks. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the show. Of course, this is the Brandon Smith Show, and I'm your host, Brandon Smith. So we've been talking about networking. And so Chi Chi, right before the break, you helped us kind of think about making sure we're networking minded. It becomes a lifestyle. We're consistent. And then I shared with you, I really have a hard time talking about myself. I really get super uncomfortable. On top of that, I'm not even sure, like if I go to a networking event and it's already kind of up and going, and people start to form their little clusters, they're the little groups.
Yeah.
It's like these little castles with walls, and I don't know how to like break into one of those conversations. Otherwise, I can just like stand there awkwardly over someone's shoulder and like stare.
You could.
Which is not good. So I end up just kind of circling the perimeter a couple times and then leaving. It's not very effective. So I'm sure the listeners never do anything like that.
No, not at all.
So what can I be doing differently that would make this better?
Okay, so the first thing is when I talk to my groups and different attendees at events, I always say, do your prep work, okay? So you have some networking prep work. Any event that you go to, if you're registering online, through Eventbrite, whatever software or platform, usually there's a contact name there, right? So after you register, maybe 2 days or maybe a day before the event, reach out to that contact person, sending an email or a phone number, calling them up and just introduce yourself. Like, hi, my name is Brandon Smith. I'm attending this particular event on XYZ day, and I just wanted to ask a few questions so I can be prepared, right? You don't want to take up too much of your time, but these are, the organizer is going to be the gatekeeper. They have the RSVP list. They've done these events in the past, so they know what to expect, and they can help you navigate. So you just ask a few questions. Of course, you want to be ethical and keep with privacy, so you can't ask for the roster or for the RSVP list, right? But you can ask what types of people are going to be there, how many people are going to be there, and, how should I dress, so that you feel comfortable, you don't feel out of place, you know who to expect, and you can kind of monitor or kind of gauge or tailor your elevator pitch. The next thing is that...
So I do want to ask a quick question.
Yes.
And I don't mean to sound like I'm doing anything wrong or in trouble here,
No.
but why can't you ask for the RSVP list?
Okay, so the reason why we don't do that is it's a security issue, kind of.
Okay.
And then also, some people will not give it to you, right? Because some lists you actually pay for, and other ones they just want to respect the privacy of those that register.
Okay.
Now you can ask for it. Some organizations might give it to you, some might not. So you're kind of taking a chance there. But think about it. If you were going to an event and someone that you didn't know said, oh, yes, I'd love to get that RSVP list, and then all of a sudden you're getting all the spam.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I see.
So they try to protect the privacy of those that are registered,
Okay.
Giving it to third parties,
Gotcha.
things like
See,
that.
I don't know
So-
much about this stuff. I'm like, I would just ask for the list, and they'd be like, who's this guy asking for the list?
No, you don't want to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But
Really
you can
helpful.
ask for like what companies would be represented, either industry or by name, what types of people will be there, like high level, mid level, that type of stuff to kind
Yeah.
of gauge the audience.
Roles, attire. I like that. I like that
Yes.
question
so
to
you
know.
kind of know, so you feel comfortable, right? You're not overdressed, you're not underdressed, and you kind of know what to expect. The other piece is that arrive early, 15, 20 minutes early, just so that you can physically introduce yourself to that organizer or the person that you spoke with. Once again, just reintroducing yourself. So you've done it already 3 times. One via RSVP online through the registration, then second by calling or emailing, and then third by physically showing up. So these are 3 ways that you've already reinforced yourself. And I like to think of it as we all have 3 images, and you've just fulfilled those 3 images. Your written image through the email, right? Or the RSVP, your verbal image, whether you call on the phone or email again, and then your physical image, physically showing up to the event, right? So just reinforcing, re-engaging, right? And then when you connect physically or connect face-to-face with the organizer, then you're just reintroducing yourself. They've already met you 3 times now, so they feel somewhat comfortable, you're credible, and then ask them, if there are certain people in the room that you think would be interested in meeting me or vice versa, can you introduce me?
Oh.
Yeah. So they already have the list. They know who's going to be there. And you're not running around trying to find different groups, find different people. And hopefully, their role as an organizer is to make sure you have a great time, come back again, tell your friends, or join the group or organization that's hosting it.
I love this.
So
Can I just bring you along with me?
Yeah. I'll be your networking your networking was it fairy tale networking guru or
yes,
fairy godmother. Yes,
I love that.
Your networking fairy godmother.
I love it. That's beautiful. Okay, that's really helpful. All right, so now that's all fantastic advice on the preparation piece.
Yes,
I love that, and I love the some of the pre-work of just getting a good sense of who's there, and then even asking that organizer, is there anyone that you think would be good for me to know, and could you introduce me? I love that. So now let's talk about the actual conversation portion of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we get in here, and let's say the next step happens. That organizer does her or his job for you, and then they bring you over to another person, and they say, Brandon, meet Chi Chi, and you two have so much in common, you should talk. So how should we think about that conversation?
Okay, so that's a great question. So you've already been introduced by the organizer, so you have some form of credibility. You can actually start by talking about yourself in the type sense of, okay, what was the purpose of you going to this event? So I came to this event because I wanted to XYZ. Start that way, whether it's to meet someone because maybe someone is doing a presentation, you've read their books, you follow them, you want to see them in person, or it's just a great way to expand your networks, or you're looking into tapping into a certain industry. So you can start there. You're not really talking about yourself per se, but you are having like a conversation or a subject matter around the conversation.
Okay, so this is going to sound very amateur.
No.
I've established myself as an amateur at this already by my question about why can't you ask for the list? Clearly, that was not a good question. So, do you start that by saying, "Here's why I came to this event," or do you say, "Why did you come to this event?"
Either one works.
So you can either state it, or you can ask the question.
Them, yes, pose the question
with the assumption that they'll then
respond back
to
and
ask you.
And it's a great question because it's not a yes or no answer. They have to respond back. So when you're asking questions, you definitely want open-ended questions to get a more robust or engaging response.
Okay. All right. So now I want to talk a little about some awkward moments in networking.
Okay.
That I experience.
Okay.
So awkward moment number one. We've been chatting, me and the same person, for 5 minutes now.
Okay.
Maybe longer. And I no longer want to chat with this person. I'd like to move on.
Okay.
But I don't want to be rude. How do you do that?
Okay, so there are different ways to do it. First of all, you could change the topic of discussion, right? Or you can simply put your hand out, give a handshake and say, it was great meeting you. Excellent time to exchange business cards and say, hopefully we can reconnect or we'll see each other at another event and you can keep moving. I don't recommend the whole, I have a phone call or, let me go to the restroom, because I will admit I've done that before and you get caught in your path trying to leave or go to the restroom. You're talking to someone else, and to your point, you don't want to be rude, but what if the other person sees you talking to someone else, right? Yep. When you had an emergency call, when you had to leave quickly. So the best thing is to just kind of put your hand out. And some people may not feel comfortable shaking hands, germophobia, whatever that may be, but at least signal or make a comment. Well, it was really nice chatting with you. Let's exchange business cards or connect on LinkedIn, and hopefully we can meet up again.
Wonderful. Okay. Great. That's super helpful. I can do that. And I'll have to think about the handshake versus the business card thing, but I think that's great. I got it. Awkward moment number 2.
Okay.
There is that group of people and they're talking, and I'd like to be part of that conversation, but they formed a little circular wall.
Okay.
How do you break into that wall?
Okay, great question again. So the first thing you want to do is first thing that you don't do is just break into the conversation. What you want to do is kind of hover around.
You can't just kind of push your way through.
No. Especially if someone's talking.
Elbow them out of the way and be like, hey, everybody.
Hey, no, because then it drops the whole conversation. So you get a little.
I can't say the party gets started now.
No.
I'm here.
No, don't do it. So what you can do is be like maybe 2 or 3 feet away and just kind of stand and listen. Like you're listening, you're making eye contact with each person that talks. So hopefully when they see you, then they'll say, okay, there's someone here standing, and they might either can go so many different ways, but hopefully they'll bring you into the conversation. So you're using a lot of nonverbal communication. You're standing close, but not too close. You're making eye contact and you're listening. So even, and this is the interesting thing, just because they're a group of people and they're talking may not necessarily mean that it's appropriate for you to join the conversation. Even though it is a public event, they could be talking about something private or something that just relates to that group. So you want to be mindful of that. So even just listening a little bit, kind of eavesdropping, which we're taught not to do, but in this case it's totally acceptable. Just kind of gauge the topic of discussion, the tone, and then you can decide. And because you're not so far into the conversation, close to them, you can easily walk away.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know we're getting close on time, and I really want to make sure I ask this question too.
Sure.
So we've talked a lot about networking events and networking, kind of either industry networking or affinity groups inside your company, et cetera. For just your thoughts on networking with intention inside the company with other leaders.
Okay.
So I'm in the finance department, and I should probably get to know folks in marketing or operations, or I'd really love for her to be my mentor or him to be my mentor. What are some? What's your thoughts on that, and any tips on how we go about doing that?
Well, it's definitely great. Career development, career advancement internally is definitely great. And so what I would suggest, of course, is what you were saying, going back to LinkedIn. So even though you are networking with them face-to-face and in person, you always want to have a good balance with your online networking and offline. Like when I talked about French, I'm still, studying French, learning, but I want to have a good understanding of the language where I'm good at speaking, reading, and writing. All three are equal. So in this case, go on to LinkedIn, make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date, is complete, and then reach out to that person via LinkedIn if you're not already connected. And if you are connected, then send a message via LinkedIn saying, can we meet up for coffee, or can we meet up for lunch, or there's a company event coming up, are you attending? Can we talk or chat there? So once again, you're incorporating that connection into work.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of companies do, volunteer work, or they sponsor different events, things of that nature. So it's even great for you, especially if you're trying to move into another department, seeing what type of activities that they do or what is of interest to them. So you can start attending those and meeting people in that department.
Great. So you can either reach out to them individually or even find other things that they're doing in that department for you to connect that way.
Absolutely.
And maybe they've got one of those happy hours that we can.
Cocktail de commerce.
Oh, I just wanted to say it one more time. Just one more time. That was fantastic. So, Chi Chi, I ask all my guests this question.
Okay.
What is one life hack you have for us to help us live a life that much more free from dysfunction, either personally or professionally?
I would have to say just keeping a calendar. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I live and die by my Google Calendar. I love it, just because it always keeps me on track. I know what to expect for the day. If someone makes a change, I can easily adjust. And I'm very organized. I try to be as organized as possible, maybe to a fault. But just keeping everything on a calendar or making a list so that you're reminding yourself, you're not forgetting, and even you can do things in advance, and that will save you time and energy.
I love that idea of just structured, organized calendar, and I love it paired with networking.
Yes.
I think often people think it's just, all the extroverts get together and they just social butterfly. But what I'm learning from you is there's much more intentionality to it, and you need to be planful, and calendar can help with that.
Absolutely.
So this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you. I feel so fortunate that you came on and helped me today. So if people want to learn more about you, buy copies of your books, because you have multiple, follow you, where can they go?
They can go to the website. You can find everything at www.sn for simple networking, so snseminars.com.
snseminars.com.
Correct.
Fantastic. And then if they could find you also on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, Chi Chi Okezie, as well as Simple Networking LLC. So I have a company page and a personal page.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to be stalking you after this.
Okay, that's all right.
But we don't stalk in networking.
Okay,
I learned that
right,
too.
right.
We don't do that. But eavesdropping is okay.
Yes.
Eavesdropping is okay. And thank you all for listening and watching the show today. Of course, keep up our fight every single week, and you can listen on iTunes. And if you are listening on iTunes, please rate, review, and subscribe. That's how people find us. And if you want additional resources, you can go to my newly updated and a revised workplace therapist site to have more access to blogs and the workplace happiness workbooks and other resources to help you live a life more free from dysfunction. So just go to www.theworkplacetherapist.com or Google The Workplace Therapist and you'll find it. And all of this is designed to help you have a life that much more free from dysfunction. So until our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.